6 months passed. The Terran-Valaxi cultural exchange was in full operation, and it was changing both civilizations in ways no one had expected. On the Valaxi training station Hope's Light, Ensign Jihu stood in front of a classroom full of nervous Valaxi cadets. At 22 years old, he was young even by human standards. But he had survived the Battle of Valaxis Prime, and that made him a veteran. "Good morning, everyone," he said with a smile. The translator made his words sound friendly, but the Valaxi students still looked terrified of him. Jihu understood. He had read the reports about how other species perceived humans. Predators, dangerous, scary. It hurt a little, but he tried not to take it personally. "I know I look frightening to you," he said gently, "and I'm sorry about that. But I'm here to teach you how to defend yourselves, how to survive. Is that okay?" The cadets nodded slowly. One brave student, a female named Cora, raised her hand. "Yes?" Jihu asked. "Instructor Jihu, is it true that humans can run for hours without stopping?" Jihu laughed. "Yes, it's true. On Earth, our ancestors hunted by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting. It's not fast, but it's effective." Another student raised his hand. "And is it true that you can eat things that are poisonous to other species?" "Also true," Jihu confirmed. "Our stomachs are very acidic. We can digest things that would kill most aliens. It's not pleasant, but we can do it if we have to." "How?" Cora asked. "How do you survive all of that?" Jihu thought about how to explain it. "Because we had to. Earth is what we call a death world. Everything there tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the plants. So we evolved to be tough, to adapt, to keep going no matter what." He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's continents. "Let me tell you about my ancestors. They lived on a peninsula with cold winters and hot summers. They didn't have the best land for farming. They didn't have natural resources like other regions. But they survived by being clever, by working hard, and by never giving up." The Valaxi students listened, fascinated. "That's what I want to teach you," Jihu continued. "Not how to be like humans, but how to use what you have, how to think creatively, how to survive when everything seems impossible." Over the following weeks, Jihu taught his students basic survival skills: how to find water, how to create shelter, how to signal for help. The Valaxi struggled with concepts that seemed obvious to humans. But they learned. The hardest lesson was about acceptable casualties. "In war, people die," Jihu explained one day. "I hate saying that. But it's true. The goal isn't to prevent all deaths. The goal is to save as many people as possible while completing your mission." A student named Vorn looked upset. "But how do you decide who lives and who dies?" "You don't," Jihu said quietly. "You make the choice that saves the most people, and then you live with that choice for the rest of your life." He could see the students struggling with this. The Valaxi had never really thought about war this way. They had always relied on others to protect them. "I know it's hard," Jihu said, "but you called us because you needed to survive. Survival isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's brutal and ugly and unfair, but it's better than the alternative." Meanwhile, on Earth, human diplomats and officers were learning from the Valaxi in return. Commander Yunbi attended philosophy classes at the Valaxi Cultural Institute. She sat among beings who had built their entire civilization on cooperation instead of competition, who had never known war until recently, who believed that violence was always the last resort, not the first. "Tell me about the Valaxi principle of shared joy," the instructor asked her one day. Yunbi thought carefully. "It's the idea that happiness is better when it's shared. That individual success means nothing if your community suffers, that we all rise together or fall together." "Very good," the instructor said. "How does this differ from human philosophy?" Yunbi frowned. "Humans value individual achievement. We celebrate personal success. We compete with each other to be the best. It's not that we don't care about our communities, but we think individual excellence makes the group stronger." "And what do you think of our approach?" the instructor asked. "I think," Yunbi paused. "I think it's beautiful. And naive, and something we should try to learn from." The instructor tilted their head curiously. "Naive?" "The galaxy isn't kind," Yunbi explained. "There are species like the Kryn who will exploit cooperation, who see it as weakness. You need to be able to defend yourselves. So we should become more like humans?" the instructor asked. "No," Yunbi said firmly. "You should stay who you are, but learn how to protect that. We can teach you to fight, But you can teach us why we're fighting in the first place. These conversations happened all across the two civilizations. Humans learning about peaceful coexistence. Velaxi learning about necessary violence. Both sides struggling to understand each other but trying anyway. Then came the test. 4 months into the exchange program, Kryn ships appeared at the edge of Terran space. Not the full swarm, they were still broken from the Battle of Velaxis Prime. But enough ships to threaten a human colony world called New Sol. Admiral Hyun, now serving as ambassador, immediately contacted Nari. "We have a situation. The Kryn are back." "We're sending ships," Nari replied without hesitation. "Captain, you don't have to—" "Yes, we do," Nari interrupted. "You came when we called. Now it's our turn." A joint Terran-Velaxi fleet assembled in record time. Commander Yunbi was given command with Nari as her second. It was an unusual arrangement, but both sides agreed it would work. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at New Sol. The Kryn were already there, beginning their bombardment. But this time they faced a different kind of enemy. "All ships, combat formation," Yunbi ordered. "Velaxi vessels, you're on defensive support. Use your superior shields to protect our attack ships. Terran vessels, offensive pattern Delta. Let's show them what cooperation looks like." The battle began. The Velaxi ships positioned themselves to absorb incoming fire, their advanced shield technology holding strong. Behind that protection, human ships unleashed devastating attacks. It was beautiful in a strange way. Two completely different species working together perfectly. But there was a problem. The Kryn had adapted since their defeat. They used new tactics, new weapons. One of their bioships launched an attack that would overwhelm the Velaxi shields protecting the human carrier resilience. Nari saw it coming. "Evasive maneuvers," she called to the Velaxi ship Morningstar, but the Velaxi captain hesitated. Moving would leave the humans exposed. It went against everything in Velaxi nature to abandon an ally. Yunbi made the call. "Morningstar, fall back. That's an order." The Velaxi captain's voice was strained. "But Commander, the resilience, we'll handle it," Yunbi said firmly. "Trust us. We're good at taking hits." The Morningstar pulled back just as the Kryn weapon hit. The resilience took the full force of the blast. Its shields collapsed. Hull breaches appeared across 3 decks, but the carrier kept fighting. "Damage control teams, seal those breaches," the Resilience's captain ordered calmly. "And someone get me firing solutions. We're not done yet." Nari watched in awe as the human crew worked through conditions that should have forced them to abandon ship. They sealed breaches while under fire. They rerouted power through damaged systems. They kept fighting when any Velaxi crew would have evacuated. "Commander Yunbi," Nari said quietly. "I understand now." "Understand what?" "Why you fight the way you do. It's not because you don't value life. It's because you refuse to give up on it," Yunbi smiled. "Now you're getting it." The battle lasted 3 hours. The combined fleet destroyed the Kryn attackers with minimal losses. But more importantly, they proved something. That cooperation between species could work. That different strengths could complement each other. After the battle, Yunbi addressed both crews over the fleet-wide channel. "Today, we saw what the future can look like. Humans and Velaxi fighting side by side. Not because we're the same, but because we respect our differences. The Velaxi taught us to value every life. We taught them that sometimes you have to fight to protect those lives. Together, we're stronger than either of us could be alone." On the planet's surface, the colonists held a celebration. Humans and Velaxi mingled, sharing food and stories. It was awkward at first. The Velaxi were still a bit scared of humans. The humans were still learning not to be so intense. But it worked. Jihu attended the celebration with some of his Velaxi students. They asked him to try some Velaxi food, a sweet pastry that was their traditional celebration dish. He tried it and smiled. "It's good," he said honestly. "On Earth we have something similar. We should share recipes." "I'd like that," Cora said shyly. She wasn't as scared of him anymore. News of the joint victory spread across the galaxy. Other species watched with interest. Some with fear, but many with hope. The Galactic Council sent an invitation to Earth. They wanted to discuss membership in the greater community. Admiral Hyun, now officially Ambassador Hyun, prepared to address the council. Nari would accompany him, representing the Velaxi Empire. The day of the address arrived. Hyun stood before representatives from dozens of species. Some looked curious, some looked frightened. All looked uncertain. Members of the Galactic Council, Hyun began. I stand before you representing humanity. The human hospital ship Mercy arrived 6 hours after the battle ended. Nari had never seen a medical vessel like it. Where Valaxi hospital ships were peaceful and welcoming, the Mercy looked like it was built for war. Heavy armor, defensive weapons, and engines powerful enough to get it anywhere quickly. Medical Officer Yuna commanded the Mercy with quiet efficiency. She was smaller than the other humans Nari had met, but there was steel in her eyes. She had probably seen more death than Nari could imagine. We're setting up triage on the planet's surface, Yuna reported to Admiral Hyun, requesting permission to treat Valaxi civilians as well as our own wounded. Permission granted, Hyun replied. Save everyone you can, Nari asked if she could observe. She wanted to understand these humans better. Yuna agreed, though she warned that it might be disturbing. The medical bay was controlled chaos. Human medics moved between beds with practiced speed. They worked on their own wounded first, stabilizing the critical cases. Nari watched a young Marine being brought in. His name was Junho and he was missing his left arm. The limb had been severed cleanly by a Kryn blade. His vital signs were crashing. Blood loss was severe. By Valaxi medical standards, he was already dead. There was no saving someone with that much damage, but the humans didn't give up. Yuna moved to his side immediately. Get me the arm, she ordered, and prep the surgical suite. We're reattaching it. Doctor, his blood pressure is dropping, a nurse reported. Then stabilize him, Yuna said calmly. Synthetic blood, type O negative. Start transfusion now. Nari watched in amazement as they pumped artificial blood into the dying soldier. His vital signs stabilized. Not fully, but enough to keep him alive. They rushed him into surgery. Nari followed, after putting on the sterile gear Yuna provided. She stood in the corner trying to stay out of the way. The surgery took 3 hours. Yuna worked with incredible precision, reattaching blood vessels, nerves, and muscle tissue. She used tools Nari had never seen before. Laser scalpels, tissue regenerators, synthetic nerve bridges, how is this possible? Nari asked quietly. Yuna didn't look up from her work. Humans have been putting each other back together for thousands of years. We've had a lot of practice. War teaches you how to save lives as much as it teaches you how to take them. When the surgery was done, Junho's arm was reattached. Yuna injected him with something she called combat stimulants. What are those? Nari asked. Drugs that help the body heal faster, Yuna explained. They boost the immune system, reduce inflammation, and manage pain. They're not gentle, but they work. How long until he recovers? Yuna checked her instruments. He'll be awake in an hour. Walking in 3. Back on light duty in a week, Nari couldn't believe it, a week. A Valaxi with those injuries would need months of recovery if they survived at all. Your people are incredible, Nari said softly. Yuna finally looked at her. No, Captain. We're just stubborn. Our bodies fight to stay alive. Always. It's built into our DNA, we don't die easy. A Valaxi medical observer, invited by Nari to learn human techniques, fainted during another surgery. The humans had to revive him and send him to rest. Sorry about that, Yuna said to Nari. We should have warned him. Human medicine is a bit more aggressive than most species are comfortable with. That was an understatement. Nari had watched them crack open a patient's chest to massage his heart directly. She had seen them use electric shocks to restart stopped hearts. They cut, stitched, and injected with a boldness that terrified other species. But it worked. By the end of the day, 73 human wounded had been treated. Only 2 had died, and those were beyond even human medicine's ability to save. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, the situation was desperate. The Kryn bombardment had destroyed 3 major cities. Millions of Valaxi were injured. The local hospitals were overwhelmed. Yuna sent her medical teams down to help. They set up field hospitals in the ruins and began treating civilians. Nari went down with them. She wanted to see how the humans interacted with her people when they weren't fighting. The first thing she noticed was how gentle they were. These same humans who had killed Kryn warriors with their bare hands now carefully lifted injured Valaxi children. They spoke softly, moved slowly, trying not to frighten the aliens they were helping. A little Valaxi girl, no more than 5 years old, had been trapped under rubble. Her leg was broken and she was terrified. She screamed when she saw the human medic approaching. The medic, a young man named Hyunwoo, stopped immediately. He knelt down several meters away and spoke in a gentle voice. "Hey there, little one. I know I look scary, but I'm here to help. My name is Hyunwoo. What's yours?" The translator worked, but the girl just cried harder. Hyunwoo thought for a moment. Then he did something unexpected. He took off his helmet, showing his face. It was against protocol. The air was contaminated with dust and toxins. But he did it anyway. "See? I'm not so scary without the helmet. Just a person like you." The girl's crying slowed. She stared at him with wide eyes. Hyunwoo reached into his medical kit and pulled out something small, a stuffed toy shaped like some earth animal. "I have a daughter back home. She's about your age. She gave me this to keep me safe. Do you want to hold it while I fix your leg?" Slowly, the girl reached out and took the toy. She hugged it close. "There we go," Hyunwoo said softly. "Now this is going to hurt a little bit, but I promise I'll be as gentle as I can, okay?" The girl nodded. Nari watched as Hyunwoo set the broken leg with careful hands. He worked quickly but gently, talking to the girl the whole time, telling her stories about his daughter, about Earth, about anything to keep her mind off the pain. When he was done, he gave the girl a small device. "This is a communicator. If you need help, press this button and someone will come. Okay?" The girl clutched the toy and the communicator. "Will you come?" she asked in a tiny voice. Hyunwoo smiled. "If I can, I absolutely will." Nari felt something break inside her chest. These humans, these terrifying predators, had crossed the galaxy to save people they didn't know. They fought like demons, but they healed like angels. Over the next week, the human fleet helped rebuild what the Kryn had destroyed. Marine units became construction crews. Fighter pilots delivered supplies to remote areas. The hospital ship Mercy stayed in orbit, its medical bays open to any Valaxi who needed help. Nari received a message from the Valaxi Council. They wanted to meet with Admiral Hyun to discuss payment for the humans' assistance. When Nari told Hyun about this, he looked surprised. "Payment? Of course," Nari said. "You saved our civilization. We owe you everything. Territory, resources, trade agreements. Name your price." Admiral Hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "We don't want payment, Captain." "But you must want something," Nari insisted. "Your people risked their lives. 37 humans died in that battle. Hundreds more were injured. You can't tell me that was for nothing." "It wasn't for nothing," Hyun said firmly. "It was for 4 billion lives." "That's not nothing, Captain. That's everything." Nari didn't understand. "But your government—" "Our government authorized this mission because it was the right thing to do," Hyun interrupted. "Not because we expected profit. Not because we wanted territory. Because you called for help and we could answer." "That makes no sense," Nari said. "Species don't act that way." "Everyone wants something," Hyun smiled sadly. "Maybe that's the problem. Maybe everyone is so busy looking for profit that they forgot what it means to just help." He stood up and walked to the window of his ready room. Outside, Valaxis Prime hung in space, beautiful and wounded but alive. "Do you know what my daughter asked me before I left on this mission?" Hyun said quietly. "She asked me why I had to go fight aliens I'd never met. Do you know what I told her?" Nari shook her head. "I told her that being strong means protecting people who can't protect themselves. That's what makes us human. Not our weapons, not our ships, not our ability to survive. Our choice to use our strength for others." He turned back to Nari. "So no, Captain. We don't want payment. But there is one thing I'd like to ask for." "Anything," Nari said. "An exchange program. Let some of my officers teach your people about warfare, survival, defense. And in return, let your people teach us about your culture, your philosophy, your way of seeing the universe." Nari thought about that. "You want us to teach you?" "Very much," Hyun said. "We're good at fighting, Captain. Maybe too good. We could use some lessons in peace from species who chose cooperation over conflict." For the first time since the battle ended, Nari smiled. "I think we can arrange that, Admiral." "Good," Hyun said. "Because if humanity is going to be part of this galaxy, we need to learn how to be more than just warriors. And you can help us with that." Nari realized then that the humans weren't just strong. They were also wise enough to know their own weaknesses, and brave enough to ask for help fixing them. Maybe she thought there was hope for the galaxy after all. The battle raged for 6 hours. Nari watched from the gentle dawn, unable to look away. Every time she thought the humans would fall back, they pushed forward instead. Every time the Kryn adapted to their tactics, the humans changed faster. Commander Taiyang led the fighter squadrons through maneuvers that made Nari feel sick just watching. His ship, the Red Phoenix, danced through enemy fire like it was weightless. He flew into debris fields that should have shredded his craft. He engaged Kryn biofighters at distances so close that the explosions rocked his own ship. How is he still alive? Nari's tactical officer whispered. Nari didn't know. By all the laws of physics and biology she understood, those pilots should be dead. The G-forces alone should have liquefied their organs. But they kept flying. She pulled up the human database entry again, reading more carefully this time. There it was, buried in the biological data. Humans evolved chasing prey across long distances. Their bodies were built to handle sustained acceleration and sudden direction changes. Their cardiovascular systems could pump blood against incredible forces. They weren't just surviving those maneuvers. They were built for them. Captain, one of the human ships is in trouble, her sensor officer reported. Nari looked at the display. A human destroyer, the Defiant, had taken heavy damage. A Kryn bioweapon had melted through its armor plating with some kind of acid. The hull was breaching in multiple places. They need to evacuate, Nari said. That section is toxic. No one can survive in those conditions. But the humans didn't evacuate. On the open communications channel, Nari heard a calm voice giving orders. Damage Control Team 3, SEAL Section 12. Use the emergency patches. Yes, I know it's hot. Put on your heat suits and deal with it. Sir, the temperature in there is beyond safe levels, another voice protested. Then work fast, the first voice replied. We're not losing this ship. Nari watched in disbelief as human crew members entered the damaged section. The temperature readings were extreme. The air was full of toxic fumes. By Velaxi standards, it was a death trap. The humans worked in it for 40 minutes, sealing the breaches and restoring systems. When they emerged, they were exhausted and injured, but they had saved their ship. They're insane, Nari's medical officer said quietly. Absolutely insane. Maybe they were. But their insanity was winning the battle. The Kryn began to pull back, regrouping for another assault. But Admiral Hyun didn't give them the chance. All ships pursue. His voice crackled over the communication channel. Don't let them regroup. The human fleet surged forward. Nari realized what was happening. The Admiral wasn't just defending Velax's prime. He was going on the offensive. This is madness, Nari said. The Kryn will lead them into a trap. But she followed anyway, keeping the gentle dawn at a safe distance. She had to see how this ended. The Kryn retreated to their staging ground, a hollowed-out moon on the edge of the system. Thousands of bioships swarmed around it. The moon's surface writhed with organic weapons and defensive structures. It was a fortress, the kind that had never been breached. Admiral, Nari called out desperately, you can't attack that. It's suicide. Admiral Hyun's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but determined. Captain Nari, I appreciate your concern, but we didn't come all this way to half-finish the job. The Kryn will rebuild if we let them. They'll come back stronger. The only way to stop them is to destroy their hive completely. But you'll lose too many people, Nari argued. Hyun smiled sadly. War always costs lives, Captain. The question is whether those lives are spent for something worthwhile. Saving 4 billion Velaxi seems pretty worthwhile to me. He cut the connection before Nari could respond. The human fleet approached the hive moon in a wedge formation. The Kryn opened fire with everything they had. Bioacid sprayed across space. Living missiles launched by the thousands. Energy weapons that pulsed with organic power. The human ships took hits. Armor melted. Hulls breached. Nari saw 2 fighters explode in balls of fire. But the humans didn't stop. They hammered the moon's defenses with focused fire, creating a gap in the protective swarm. Then the real assault began. Nari watched as human landing craft launched from the carriers. Small armored ships that dove straight into the hell of the battle. They landed on the moon's surface and deployed troops. Marines. Human soldiers in powered armor carrying weapons that looked like they belonged in nightmares. Staff Sergeant Minji led the first wave. Nari had seen the security footage of her fighting the Kryn boarders. But that was nothing compared to this. Minji and her squad moved through the hive tunnels like they were born in them. They communicated with quick hand signals and short words. When they encountered Kryn warriors, they didn't hesitate. The fighting was brutal. Nari had to look away several times. But every time she looked back, the humans were still advancing. Lieutenant Sunho led a demolition team deeper into the moon. Their mission was simple but terrifying. Plant explosives in the hive's core. The heat down there was extreme. hot enough to melt most metals. The humans went in anyway. Nari listened to their communications channel. She heard them joking, encouraging each other, complaining about the heat like it was a minor inconvenience. One of them was singing something in their language. The translator called it a working song. They were singing while walking through hell. It took them 2 hours to reach the core. 2 hours of fighting through endless Kryn defenders, through heat that would cook any Valaxi alive, through conditions that should have been impossible to survive. When they reached the core chamber, they found the Kryn queen. Nari had heard stories about the queens, massive creatures the size of small ships, intelligent and ancient, the heart of every hive. No one had ever killed one. Contact, Lieutenant Sunho reported calmly. We have a big one. Requesting backup. Negative, Admiral Hyun's voice replied. All other teams are engaged. Can you handle it? There was a pause. Then Sunho laughed. Actually laughed. Sir, you sent humans to kill a big alien monster. This is literally what we're best at. Carry on, Lieutenant. Nari pulled up the video feed from Sunho's helmet camera. She immediately wished she hadn't. The queen was enormous, filling the entire chamber. She had dozens of limbs, each one ending in razor-sharp claws. Her armor was thick, layered with organic plating that could stop most weapons. She screamed when she saw the humans, a sound that made Nari's ears ring even through the speakers. The humans didn't run. They advanced. Captain Do-hyun and his marine company entered the chamber from 3 different tunnels. They moved in coordinated patterns, laying down covering fire while others advanced. When the queen struck with her massive limbs, they dodged and rolled, staying just ahead of her attacks. One marine went down, crushed by a sweeping claw. His squad mates dragged him to safety without breaking formation. Another marine's armor was breached by the queen's acid spray. He kept fighting anyway, screaming in pain but refusing to fall back. They fought for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of chaos and violence and desperate determination. Nari watched humans get injured, get back up, and keep fighting. She watched them coordinate attacks with nothing but hand signals and trust. Finally, Captain Do-hyun saw an opening. The queen reared back to strike, exposing the softer armor on her underbelly. Now, he shouted. Every human fired at once. Bullets, energy beams, and explosive rounds poured into the weak spot. The queen shrieked and thrashed. Her limbs flailed wildly, smashing into the walls. One of her claws caught Captain Do-hyun, sending him flying across the chamber. He hit the wall hard and didn't get up. Captain's down, someone shouted. Staff Sergeant Minji was there in seconds. She checked his vital signs while the others kept firing. He's alive, she reported. Unconscious but alive. Then finish this, Do-hyun's second-in-command ordered. Lieutenant Sunho ran forward with the demolition charges. He dodged the queen's dying thrashes and planted the explosives directly on her body. Then he ran, sprinting back toward the tunnel. Everyone out, he yelled. 30 seconds. The Marines grabbed their wounded and ran. They moved fast, faster than Nari thought possible in those heavy armor suits. Behind them, the queen's screams grew louder, more desperate. The explosives detonated. The blast tore through the hive moon's core. Secondary explosions followed as the organic structures caught fire. The entire moon began to shake itself apart. All teams, emergency extraction, Admiral Hyun ordered. Get to the landing craft now. Nari watched on her sensors as the human teams fought their way back to the surface. Some carried wounded. Some had to blast new paths through collapsing tunnels. But they all made it out. The landing craft launched just as the moon began to break apart. Massive chunks of rock and organic matter exploded outward. The remaining Kryn ships scattered in panic. Admiral Hyun didn't let them escape. Pursue and destroy, he ordered. No survivors. The human fleet hunted down the fleeing Kryn ships one by one. By the time the sun rose over Valaxis Prime, the battle was over. The Kryn swarm was destroyed. 4 billion Valaxi were saved. And Nari finally understood what she had unleashed. Not monsters, not mindless killers, but something perhaps more terrifying. Humans who would walk through hell itself to do what they believed was right. The human ships moved through space like nothing Nari had ever seen. They didn't drift or glide the way Valaxi ships did. They moved with purpose, with power, like hunters stalking prey. Nari stood on her bridge trying to keep her crew calm, but she could see the fear in their eyes. These ships were wrong. Everything about them was wrong. The hulls were scarred and reinforced. Weapon ports covered every surface. These weren't exploration vessels or trade ships. These were machines built for killing. Captain, they're hailing us, her communications officer said. His voice cracked with fear. Nari straightened her uniform. Audio only. I want to hear them first. The speakers crackled. Then a voice came through, speaking in a language the translator struggled to process. The words were sharp, confident, almost casual. This is Fleet Admiral Hyun of the Terran 5th Expeditionary Fleet. We are responding to your distress call. We understand you have a pest problem. We specialize in extermination. The translation made Nari's skin crawl. Pest problem? Extermination? The way he spoke made it sound like the Kryn were nothing more than insects to be swatted. Admiral Hyun, Nari replied carefully. This is Captain Nari of the Valaxi vessel Gentle Dawn. We are grateful for your response, but I must warn you. The Kryn are extremely dangerous. They have destroyed entire civilizations. There was a pause. Then the human spoke again, and Nari could hear something in his voice. It took her a moment to identify it. Amusement. Captain Nari, we appreciate the warning, but you contacted us for a reason. Let us do what we do best. Nari felt her hands shaking. Admiral, may I see you? Visual communication? Another pause. If you wish. But I should warn you. Most species find humans disturbing to look at. Are you sure? What kind of warning was that? Nari had met dozens of species in her career. She had seen beings with tentacles, beings made of gas, beings that looked like living crystals. How bad could humans be? I am sure, she said. All right. Switching to visual, the screen flickered. Nari's breath caught in her throat. Her crew gasped. One officer stumbled backward. The human male on the screen was terrifying. His eyes faced forward, set deep in his skull. Predator eyes designed for judging distance to prey. His face was hard, lined with scars. His body was thick with muscle, built for violence. When he smiled, Nari could see flat teeth meant for grinding and sharp teeth meant for tearing. But worse than any of that was the intelligence in those eyes. This wasn't some mindless beast. This was a thinking, planning predator, a hunter smart enough to build starships. Captain Nari, Admiral Hyun said. His voice was surprisingly gentle. I understand we can be unsettling to look at, but we are here to help. Nari forced herself to speak. How many ships do you have, Admiral? 15 warships. 6,000 crew total. We also have the carrier Indomitable, my flagship. She carries 72 fighters and 3 Marine battalions. 6,000. The Valaxi had barely managed to gather 8,000 crew across their entire fleet. And the humans brought that many in just 15 ships? Admiral, the Kryn number in the billions. Their bioships can regenerate damage. They have never been stopped once they begin a harvest. Admiral Hyun leaned back in his chair. Behind him, Nari could see more humans moving across the bridge. They worked with frightening coordination, each one knowing their role perfectly. It reminded her of schoolfish on her homeworld, moving as one organism. Except these weren't prey fish. These were sharks, Captain, Hyun said. Let me explain something about humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Extreme weather, dangerous animals, deadly diseases. Everything on our planet wanted us dead. Do you know how we survived? Nari shook her head. We became stubborn, Hyun said. We learned to adapt. We learned to fight. And most importantly, we learned that nothing is unstoppable. Everything can be killed if you're smart enough and determined enough. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. You called us because you were desperate, because no one else would help. Well, humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We are many things, Captain Nari. We are dangerous. We are violent. We are scary. But we are also good people. And we don't do nothing. Before Nari could respond, alarms blared across her bridge. Captain, her sensor officer shouted. The Kryn. They're at Valaxis Prime. The attack has begun. Nari's screen split. Half showed Admiral Hyun. The other half showed her homeworld. The beautiful blue and green planet was being swarmed by Kryn bioships, thousands of them like locusts descending on the surface. Explosions bloomed in the atmosphere as the bombardment began. No, Nari whispered. We're too late. No, we're not, Admiral Hyun said. His voice was hard now, all gentleness gone. Helmsman G1 plot intercept course. Maximum acceleration. Sir, that acceleration will exceed safety limits, a female voice responded. I'm aware. Do it anyway. On Nari's sensors, the human fleet began to move. They accelerated at speeds that made her feel sick just watching. No living crew could survive those forces. The gravity would crush them. But the humans didn't slow down. Admiral, Nari said desperately. Your crew will be fine, Hyun interrupted. We evolved on a high-gravity world, Captain. Our bodies can handle it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a battle to fight. The human fleet shot past the gentle dawn like bullets. Nari watched them go, unable to process what she was seeing. They were flying toward billions of Kryn ships without hesitation, without fear. Should we follow them? Her tactical officer asked. Nari thought about it. Their small ship would be useless in the battle to come. But she couldn't just sit here and do nothing. Follow at a safe distance, she ordered. I want to see this. It took the gentle dawn 30 minutes to reach the edge of the battle zone. By then, the fight had already begun, and what Nari saw defied everything she knew about warfare. The human fighters were in the middle of the Kryn swarm, dodging and weaving through enemy fire with impossible precision. They flew in formations that should have been suicide, banking at angles that should have killed the pilots. But they kept flying, kept fighting, kept destroying. The larger human ships hammered the Kryn with weapons Nari had never seen before. Missiles that split into dozens of smaller warheads. Energy beams that punched through bioship hulls like paper. And something called railguns that launched metal slugs at incredible speeds. The Kryn tried to swarm the human ships using their usual tactic of overwhelming numbers. But the humans were ready. Their point defense systems created walls of fire that shredded the bioships by the hundreds. Captain, her sensor officer said in awe. They're winning. Nari couldn't believe it. The Kryn had crushed every fleet that fought them. But the humans were pushing them back, destroying them, making them retreat. Then disaster struck. One of the Kryn bioships, larger than the rest, launched itself at the human flagship. It hit the Indomitable like a battering ram, tearing through the hull. Alarms screamed across all frequencies. Nari watched in horror as the bioship began pumping boarding organisms into the human vessel. She had seen what happened when Kryn warriors boarded a ship. They slaughtered everything in their path. Admiral Hyun, Nari called out. You have boarders. You need to evacuate that section. The Admiral's face appeared on screen again. He was standing now, and Nari could hear alarms blaring in the background. But he was smiling. Evacuate, he said. Captain, the Kryn just made a terrible mistake. What do you mean? They brought the fight to us, Hyun said. And there's nothing in this galaxy better at close combat than an angry human. He turned to someone off-screen. Staff Sergeant Minji, you have boarders in Section 7. Deal with them. A female voice responded, hard and eager. Yes, sir. With pleasure. Nari watched the security footage that Hyun shared with her. She watched as human Marines, armored and armed, rushed to meet the Kryn warriors. The humans should have been terrified. They should have run. Instead, they attacked. The battle was brutal, violent, and shockingly short. The Kryn warriors were strong and fast, but the humans were faster, smarter, and absolutely relentless. They fought with a ferocity that made Nari's blood run cold. Within minutes, every Kryn boarder was dead. Nari stared at the screen, unable to speak. What had she unleashed on this galaxy? Captain Nari sat in her command chair, staring at the empty communication screen. Her hands shook slightly as she checked the displays again. Nothing. No response from anyone. The bridge of the gentle dawn was quiet. Too quiet. Her crew moved slowly, their blue skin pale with fear. Everyone knew what was coming. The Kryn swarm had already destroyed 2 colonies. Soon they would reach Valaxis Prime. 4 billion people lived on that world. 4 billion souls who would die if help didn't arrive soon. Nari had sent 37 messages to their allies. The Zelian Republic, who had traded with them for 200 years, sent a simple reply. We cannot help. The Kryn are too dangerous. We are sorry. The Morthus Collective didn't even respond. The Bravali Union, who called themselves friends, sent condolences but no ships. No one was coming to save them. Captain, her communications officer spoke softly. The council is calling again. Nari closed her eyes. She didn't want to face them, didn't want to see the fear in their eyes or hear the desperation in their voices. But she was a captain. She had a duty. Put them through, she said. The screen flickered. 5 faces appeared, representing the 4 species of the Valaxi Empire. High Chancellor Velm looked older than Nari remembered. His face was drawn, his movements slow. Captain Nari, he said, tell us you have good news. I cannot, High Chancellor, Nari replied. She felt her throat tighten. No one is coming. We are alone. Silence fell across the connection. One of the council members, a female with silver markings, began to weep quietly. Another simply stared at nothing, his hope visibly dying. There must be someone, Chancellor Velm said. Someone in the galaxy who will help us. Nari pulled up the galactic map. She had checked every nearby civilization. Every single one had refused or ignored their calls. Her finger moved across the display, searching for anything she had missed. Then she saw it, a small notation on the far edge of the map. A newly discovered species added to the database only 3 years ago. The entry was marked in red. Warning color, she opened the file. The name read, Terran Confederacy Species Human. The information was minimal. The humans had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. They had made contact with a few species but kept mostly to themselves. Their homeworld was listed as Earth Classification Deathworld. Nari had never seen that classification before. She read further. The description made her blood run cold. Apex predator species. Evolved on high-gravity world with extreme environmental conditions. Forward-facing eyes. Persistence hunter biology. Demonstrates high aggression and unusual damage tolerance. Approach with extreme caution. Do not engage in conflict. What did you find? Chancellor Velm asked. Nari hesitated. Everything about this entry screamed danger. These humans sounded like monsters. The kind of species the Valaxi avoided at all costs. But they were out of options. There is one species that hasn't been contacted yet, Nari said slowly. They are called humans. But High Chancellor, they are listed as extremely dangerous. More dangerous than the Kryn? Another council member asked. Nari didn't know how to answer that. The Kryn were a swarm, a force of nature. But these humans, the database warned about them as individuals. Each one was apparently deadly. I don't know, Nari admitted. But they are our last option. The council members looked at each other. Fear and desperation warred on their faces. Finally, Chancellor Velm nodded. Send the message, he said. We have nothing left to lose. Nari typed out the distress call. She included their location, the nature of the threat, and a desperate plea for assistance. Her finger hovered over the send button. May the ancestors forgive us, she whispered and pressed the button. The message shot out into space, traveling faster than light toward the human territories. Nari didn't expect a response. Why would these dangerous aliens help a species they didn't know? She stood up from her chair. I'm going to get some rest, she told her crew. Wake me if anything changes. Nari had barely reached her quarters when the alarm sounded. She ran back to the bridge, her heart's pounding. What is it? She demanded. Her communications officer looked up, his eyes wide with shock. Captain, we have a response. From the humans. Already? Nari felt her stomach drop. The message had only been sent 3 hours ago. Even with the fastest communication systems, it should take days to get a reply across that distance. Show me, she ordered. The screen displayed a text message. The translation was strange, the words simple and direct in a way that Valaxi language never was. Coordinates received. Fleet en route. ETA 28 hours. Hold position. Nari read it 3 times. A fleet in 28 hours? That was impossible. No species could move ships that fast. It took weeks to organize a fleet deployment. The travel time alone should be days, not hours. This must be a mistake, she said. Check the translation. Her officer worked quickly. No mistake, Captain. That's what it says. They're sending a fleet. It will arrive in 28 hours, but how? Nari stared at the message. No one can travel that fast. She pulled up the human file again. There had to be something she missed. She read through the technical data. Human ships used a different type of faster-than-light drive, something they called jump drive technology. The mathematics were beyond her understanding, but the speed ratings were not. Human ships were fast, much faster than Valaxi ships. Send a message to the council, Nari ordered. Tell them help is coming. Should we tell them who is coming? Her officer asked nervously. Nari thought about that. Should she tell them that she had called predators to save them from predators? Should she mention that the humans might be just as dangerous as the Kryn? Not yet, she decided. Let them have hope for now. The next day passed in agonizing slowness. The Kryn swarm moved closer to Valaxis Prime. The Valaxi fleet, small and outdated, tried to evacuate civilians from the planet's surface. They saved thousands, but billions remained. Nari watched the clock count down. 28 hours became 20. 20 became 10. Still no sign of the human fleet. Maybe it had been a lie. Maybe the humans had no intention of coming. Maybe this was some cruel joke by a predator species. Then, with 2 hours left on the countdown, every sensor on the Gentle Dawn screamed at once. Captain, her sensor officer shouted. multiple contacts dropping out of faster than light at the system edge. Nari pulled up the display. 15 massive signatures appeared on her screen. Ships. Huge ships, each one larger than anything in the Valaxi fleet. They hung in space like sleeping predators, dark and menacing. Are those... Her officer began. The humans, Nari finished. Her voice was barely a whisper. She had called for help. And the Deathworlders had answered. Now she had to face them and hope she hadn't made a terrible mistake.